Welcome to another episode of the Client Experience Architect podcast. I'm your host, Zach Hoskins, and it is my passion to guide you through crafting unique experiences for your clients to help you both maximize the value you bring and create a sales force of ranting, raving fans out there promoting your business. It is my pleasure to bring to you businesses who are crushing it with intentional customer-centric experiences and dive into what that looks like now, what it has looked like over the life of the business, and what it will look like in the future of their business. My goal is that you can snag some valuable insights to implement into your business after listening. Let's dive in. On this episode, I sit down with Anese Cavanaugh, creator of the IEP, Intentional Energy Presence Method. Clients say that she builds creative leaders, makes people better, and gets people having honest conversations. She is driven by helping people design businesses and lives that they love and that make a positive impact in the world. You guys are really going to enjoy this one. Listen in on my conversation with Anese Cavanaugh. Anese, thank you so much for joining me on the podcast. It's a pleasure to have you.
No, Zach, thank you for having me. I'm excited to be with you.
Awesome. Well, can we take a step back and kind of dive into, give us some context around your business, your background, your story, and those types of things?
Sure, absolutely. So let's see. I started my business. I think I started my business when I was about 14 years old and didn't realize it. But basically at a really young age, I got fascinated by impact and how people showed up and how that created the results they wanted and made them happy or didn't. So I really, at about 14 years old, I started just noticing this. And then when I was in school, I actually went to school for kinesiology to work with athletes, studied the body for many, many years. And then very, very long story short, moved through different realms in my career that looked at healthcare, working in corporate America, working with people on their wellness and doing all these different things. And then I had my first baby, and decided I was never going to work again. And so really very intentionally sat in my car while he was napping. And when I was waiting to go into workout, I sat in my car and I took out a pad of Post-its and I started to basically create a vision, which at that time I didn't know it was even a vision. I didn't even know that there was such a thing as visioning, but I basically started to create a vision that said, if I could do anything that I wanted from my entire career, my education, my background, the stuff that I knew lit me up, that I knew I was also good at and could be in service of the most human beings while still being a really good mom, what would I want to do? And basically I took that pad of Post-its and I started writing all of the favorite things I'd ever done in any of my JOBs or any of my career. And before you knew it, I had basically this really cool job description on my dashboard and went home really, really excited for this job, realized there was no such thing as that job. Nobody was offering the job. And so I built a company out of it. And that was back in 2002. So it's been about 16 years now. I basically went home. It was totally on fire for it. Woke up the next morning at 5 o'clock in the morning, started crafting it out, and built the business very, very organically, going very, very part-time when my kids were little. It was more of a hobby and something that I just really enjoyed that I would do while they were in childcare or in nursery school or whatever. And as the business built, and the business originally was just around working with people on their well-being and how that integrated with their leadership, how effective they could be as a leader because of the way they took care of themselves. That's where we originally started. But in 2009, started to realize there was an actual methodology to what I was doing with people. And that's when we really, I put both feet in, actually probably more about 2007, put both feet in, really started to pull apart the methodology and what I was actually doing with organizations and business leaders that was helping them be so effective. Created the methodology. The methodology today is called the IEP method, which stands for Intentional Energetic Presence. And then devoted my entire business career and life to helping people show up even more effectively. And then here we are today.
Wow. Well, thank you for giving us some of the context. I'm excited to dive deeper into that method and how you are implementing that with businesses. So First, how do you find, how do you know who is an ideal client or an ideal fit for that service?
Yeah, it's a really good, so to clarify on the services too. So when we first started doing this business, a lot of it was one-on-one work and what you would think is more of executive coaching, and then we moved it into training and leadership development. And we've flipped the business over. We've reversed it so that now, while originally about, I would say 80 to 90% was the one-on-one and really private, intimate work. Starting in 2009, when we really put both feet in, we flipped it over, and so now only about 20% of it is private work, and the rest of it is in training programs, organizational consulting. We do a thing called stewardship, which is where I teach people inside the company how to actually teach this methodology, and then they bring it back to their company or their industry and they steward it. So just to kind of give you even more context around what the actual business is now, um, and how we find our people. It's such a good question, Zach, because when we first started, I would basically work with anybody that wanted to work with us, and found that that was exhausting because I found that this work wasn't necessarily always for everybody. And so we started to really look at, we had some core criteria, which was, were people open to something that was really out of the box. So one of the things that I'm talking about in my work with people every day is intentions, energy, and presence. I use
Hmm.
words like vibration, vibrational presence. And, the body of work is called intentional energetic presence. So one of the criteria is we find that companies that are really looking to do something out of the box that's different, that they're willing to kind of lean into maybe even some discomfort around what they're used to doing, those companies usually do really, really well with us.
Wow. Okay. Well, good deal. So that gives us a little bit of context there. Well, when I talked in a previous podcast to our mutual friend Ari,
Yeah.
we went into a little bit about energy in the organization and how that can affect the client experience and the employee experience and kind of how it can affect the entire culture.
Yeah.
Can you spend some time kind of unpacking how you might use them as a case study, kind of talk us through what you might have done with Zingerman's and kind of expand on that to kind of show us how that can affect the client experience or even the culture as a whole.
Yeah, well, I think the easier way to talk about that, because I think when I look at Zingerman's is, I always joke around with them that I'm singing to the choir with Zingerman's, because they
Mm.
already, all of them are already so, their energy is beautiful, and the way that they're in service of their customers, they've already, like, they're rocking it. I remember meeting him. We met at a conference and we were talking about energy, and I remember the moment where he went, "Oh my gosh, of course!" Like, of course, because here's the thing with energy, we are energy, we are swimming in it, we are it. And the whole premise of uh, my belief system and the methodology that we've built out over the years is that we're contagious. So anything I bring to my life, any way that I show up in a room with you, in conversation with my children, in my organization, I'm contagious. And so therefore, whatever
Mm.
I'm putting out there, the vibe or whatever you want to call it, whatever I'm putting out there, that is something that you're going to feel, and you're going to react to that, and you're either going to build upon it and and make it even better, or you're going to get sucked into it. And so an example of this, Zach, is, there's a rule in this work, which is the lowest vibration in the room wins. So for example, you're in a meeting, or you're doing your business, or think about Zingerman's, and you walk into a Zingerman's business, and automatically it feels amazing. I was just there a couple weeks ago launching the last book. Every single business that I went into felt so amazing to be in there, just to talk to their people. They're happy. They're putting out a really, really positive vibe, versus walking into another organization, and it doesn't even have to be that kind of organization. It could just be an office, and you walk in, and the minute you walk in, you can feel the heavy energy. You can feel it just doesn't feel great. You feel, I call it the ick. You feel the ick.
Mm.
And so, simply put, like, if you think about a meeting, if I walk into a meeting, I feel really great. I've got 6 people with me that feel really great. And there's those 2 people that are sitting in the corner at the table, arms crossed, brows furrowed, and their energy is really, really low. And it just feels like I might not be able to put my finger on it. They might not even say anything bad, but I can feel their energetic vibration. And the rule is this: generally speaking, those 6 people that we all came in all excited to have that meeting, generally speaking, it will be very easy to join the lowest vibration where we start to match that lower energy. And then the meeting becomes more negative. And when we're done with the meeting, we walk out of there, it wasn't productive. We're all exhausted. And then we walk out going, see, meetings totally suck. Versus when I go into a room, if I feel that lower energy, I've got the ability to take care of myself, hold my own state, set a really clear intention to hold my state and be a positive contribution in that room. I am more likely to actually invite those 2 people to step up their own energetic vibration. But what I find happens is that we walk around, and this is in corporate America, this is anything. I just got back from working with a bunch of physicists last week, and it does not matter the industry, the organization, the age, the title, the gender, it does not matter. We tend to walk around, we are projecting our own intentions, energy, and our presence. And that is having an impact everywhere we go. And it is either contributing to things going better or it is contributing to things going worse. And what I find is that as soon as we've got the awareness of that, 70% of it is an awareness, and the 30% is what I decide to do with it. And if I decide to do something great with it, I now have a better, higher vibration organization.
Whoa. I think we can all agree that probably just blew a lot of our minds. That's incredible. And I think it's such an awesome work that you've, I mean, would it be fair to say that you created this method? I mean, you came up with this. This is all you.
Well, yes. So I created the IEP method for sure. I created intentional energetic presence. However, I did not create energy. I did not create vibration. I didn't create these ideas. I mean, there's the way that I look at this is that this is stuff, Zach, that we are aware of from a very young age. But in the busyness of our lives, we forget about it. And what I find is that there are some people that are incredibly in tune to it, and there are some people that aren't. And wherever you're at is perfectly great. It's just a matter of starting to notice. As soon as I start to notice that I'm not having the impact I want, or my organizational energy feels heavy, or my culture just feels icky, and I just don't know why. The minute I notice that, that means I'm now in a powerful position to start looking at, well, how am I showing up? How am I contributing to this? And how do I want to shift it? And the IEP method, what it does is it gives people tools and frameworks and an entire structure and process to be able to really identify what's going on for themselves. How do they need to shift it? And then how can they be more positive, contagious in their organization, in their team, in their marriage, in their family, in their relationships, in anything? How can they personally do it? Because that's really where it starts. And then we can actually expand it out so it's effective for the entire team, the entire organization, all of it.
Sure.
Yeah, so I did create the methodology, but I definitely, every single person listening to this knows what it feels like to walk into a room and to be with a person where all of a sudden you feel tired, or to be in the grocery store and you're feeling really, really good, and you run into that person in the PTA and they start telling you how busy they are and how hard everything is, and all of a sudden you feel exhausted. Everyone knows what that feels like. And in my experience, we've all been that person too that exhausts others. So.
Wow, that's incredible. So tell me, so let's dive a little bit into the business part of this. So what touch points are most important to your clients? So when you're working with a business, help us understand, kind of, since this is a different type of business model that I've kind of, than some of the other individuals that I've interviewed, if you could kind of take us through a little bit of that.
Sure, absolutely. Well, what's funny, Zach, is that we have spent so much time, energy, and money on marketing and putting stuff out via email and all these different things, and a lot of it has worked really well. And a lot of it, even after this many years in business, what we found is that our business is still about 80% by referral. It is really interesting. So I just want to preface this conversation with that, is that we tend to call in a lot of people who they have an experience of either myself, one of our programs, or someone on my team, and then they go and they tell people about it. And that's usually how we bring in new people into the community and new participants in our programs. The touch point, I was thinking about that question, and we have many different ways that we're out there. I'm out there on social media. We do our email marketing campaigns. I speak a ton. I write books. I write articles. I have a column on Inc. Um, there are many, many different touch points. But when I really think about that question, what are most important? It is, to me, how I and how every single person on my team shows up with anybody that comes in contact with our company, whether it is through an email, a tweet, or in person. It doesn't matter. So it's the energy that we're putting out, and the thing that I look at in that energy is it's not always about being up and hey there, hi there, ho there. It's about being incredibly real and present and grounded, and being in
Mm,
service of no matter what. And so
wow.
that's that to me, like I could go through and map out every single touch point and what the back and forth might look like, what people might be coming in contact with. But really at the end of the day, even in an email, if my assistant sends an email to a potential speaking engagement or anything, the intention she has behind that email, her energy and how she's sending it out, and her level of presence when she sends that will be received and felt by the person that receives it. So it's essential that all of us show up really well when we're in our business.
No doubt. Wow, that's incredible. Okay, so let's say you perform your service for a client or you do a speaking engagement, those types of things. How do you get feedback from your clients, from people you interact with, you engage with, those types of things, and then how do you implement that kind of moving
Oh,
forward?
great. I love that. Well, we're constantly asking for feedback. So we get feedback. It depends. If people are coming to a live event, we do these 2-day live events and we do half-day events. If they come to an event, we always have feedback forms that they can fill out, and we allow, they can be anonymous if they'd like. That's totally up to them. But we ask for really, really specific feedback. So if one of my stewards is out facilitating a session, one of the questions on there is what is the energy of the facilitator? Did you feel
Mm,
that the facilitator cared about you? So there's like some really beautiful quantitative feedback to just get a sense of how are we showing up as a team and as an organization. And then there's also the qualitative, like, what's the impact on this? What do you see this doing for your company over the next year, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So that's one way, is through surveys. I have a person on my team who she'll reach out and she'll follow up with people very randomly. It's almost like a lotto. We'll go, okay, find 5 people that went through something and interview them. And so she'll follow up and do just heart to heart feedback conversations. I'm not involved in those. And so if they say that, it's usually me that's delivering the work. I've got an amazing team that supports me in all of this, but I'm the one
sure.
that's usually out speaking and leading it. So we've designed the feedback so that people can really be honest and not worry about hurting my feelings if they had a bad experience.
Yeah.
um, we also look at feedback on our site. We use HubSpot, so we're watching our metrics on the back end to kind of see what articles do the best, what pages do the best. But it's funny because we're not a huge, I would say we're not a huge quantitative feedback gatherer, just because so much of
Mhm.
what we do with people is so hard to quantify. However, it's more the quality of what's happening and the quality of how they're feeling that they'll report back, and that can be quantified. But what we find is that if we can simply get a sense of people and how much happier are you after doing this work, how
Mm.
better does your team feel? Like, how much more engaged is your team? How much less lost time have you guys had in the last year? How much more productive are your meetings? Oh, by the way, how long are your meetings now? Because a lot of times when people do this work, they'll find that they can reduce their meetings by 30% because they're doing this work, because everyone coming to the meeting is more intentional. They're managing their energy and they're more present. And so little things like that we'll ask for.
Wow. Yeah. So has that been intentional, or like, how you word those questions, or how you create those surveys, or what you're looking for, or has it been kind of just organic, like, oh, hey, we should probably start looking at that? Or was it someone on your team or yourself saying, this is exactly what I want to look for. This is the question. Let's add
Yeah,
this.
Well, I can tell you, so years ago, I would say back in 2007, 2008, I was super hungry for feedback. So what we would do is every single person that would go through a program, we would have them do a pre-assessment and a post-assessment. And sometimes the programs were 3 months, sometimes they were 6 months. And that was when I was doing more of like smaller group initiatives and companies. And Zach, it was so funny because what would happen is the way that we were asking the questions were not great. Because here's what would happen. We would say, all right, scale of 0 to 10, how present do you feel? How good of a communicator? Like how good is your communication? What's your level of energy? How energized do you like? I can't even remember the exact way we phrased it, but basically we'd give them a 0 to 10 score and they could self-assess. And what would happen is at the end of the program, 3 months, 6 months later, we would do it again to get our post data. And they they would come back and they'd say, oh, well, I thought I was at an 8, but actually I'm only present at like a 4 right now. Or, oh, I thought my quality of leadership was a 7 or an 8, but actually I'm like at a 2. And at first I was devastated because I would see like, oh my gosh, we just did all this work. And the sponsor of the program would go, wait, I don't understand. Why did our ratings fall? And what I started to realize is the way I was asking the questions and the way we were measuring was not effective. Because what would happen is people would go, well, of course I'm present at a 9 or a 10. But then they'd learn what presence actually was. Then they would learn what good leadership looked like and felt like and tasted like. They would learn what it meant to have better energy. And our biggest qualitative comment that we would get over and over again was something to the effect of, wow, I didn't realize how good could feel. And then I went through and started doing this work and I realized like I wasn't feeling great. I actually feel much better now. And I know I'm just getting started. So
wow.
Yeah.
So having that true benchmark of, I guess it's kind of the same, having, I could be present over here, but then once you teach them, it's a different definition of present, I guess. What they perceive or what, what
For
you're
sure.
teaching.
And people often don't realize it, Zach. They're walking. Here's what I find in this work. We are walking around so fast. We spend a lot of time in our heads. We're moving quickly. We got a lot of stuff going on. And in that, we're not present. It's hard to be present. And when you actually give a human being the space to sit down, take a breath, and check in with them, as simple as how's my body right now? How's my physical energy? How is my mental energy? Like, how mentally present actually am I? How's my emotional energy? Like, am I tending to my emotional needs right now? And oh, by the way, how's my vibrational energy? If you actually give people the gift of checking in, taking a breath, and you give them a container to just be human in, there is so much wisdom there. And then it's the whole idea of going slow to go fast, because if I can slow down, even in the moment right now with you, if I can just slow down and check in with myself, I can now get in front of it, be more present with you as another human being, and then also be more intentional about what I want to say and what is the impact I want to have on you. And so this idea of presence, I think we talk about this a lot in our culture, and most people think that it has to do with meditation or their stage presence or whatever. But really, I look at presence as a very holistic view. It's how present am I to this moment? How present am I to my breath? How present am I to the health of my organization? How present am I to the effectiveness of my leadership? And if I have a safe space to really ask those questions, automatically I'm now on a trajectory to do it even better. So that's what we assess. Is we went through a period of time where, because I started to realize like, oh gosh, you guys, we're asking questions about something that people really don't know for themselves until they learn it. And so the way we're measuring it it's not actually really great. So we actually stopped for a couple of years and we would just say, we're not going to measure it that way. We're just going to see, do you feel better? And do people hang out with you and follow you because they want to or because they have to now? And that question alone is pretty powerful when you ask that.
Yeah, no doubt. Oh my goodness, Anese, you're bringing some huge value, I believe, to our listeners, and I thank you so much for that. So let's take a step back from the business. Let's say, let's learn a little bit more about you, and so let's see here. So, what's been a favorite challenge or failure or apparent failure that you've faced, and how has that actually set you up for a later success?
Great. Let's see. I would say, gosh, I mean, I've had really great failures. I've had failures where I've hired the wrong people, or I've hired people for, I shouldn't say the wrong people. I personally have hired people for the wrong position because I like them. And then
Mm,
tried to make the position work for them, and that hasn't set anybody up. So that to me is a total leadership fail on my part, which I've learned a lot about. I think my record was having someone work with the company for a while that we changed the job 8 different times to make it work, and that didn't set anybody
wow.
up. So that was a long time ago, thank God. But that's one of my favorites because it really taught me to be really present and intentional, to walk my talk, right, around who was I bringing into the company and
Sure.
why. So that's one. Another one has been, one of my greatest superpowers is flexibility. So I can be incredibly flexible with our clients, with customers, with my team. And on the other side of any superpower is always your kryptonite. So too much flexibility actually doesn't serve your team if they don't know what they can count, if they don't know what you're actually a hard stop for. So that's been a
Mm,
good that's been a good learning. And I would say the other one is, oh, here's this one really applies to this work too, is trying to be for everybody. So having this body of work be for everybody and trying to meet every human being where they're at, when really this work isn't for everybody. It's been funny, Zach, because I would say probably 70-80% of the population, this work is totally for. Like it's people are ready for it, they want it. They might not realize they want it. They might not even realize it was important to them until something that I'll say or some awareness that they'll have will click, and then they're on board. And so I've
mm,
come to realize that 70 to 80% of the people are in, 20 to 30 are going to be a no. And for a long time, I would say I would say even the first 10 years of business, we tried to make something for everybody. And what that did was it actually diluted my energy and my team's energy to be able to really lean in and support the people that were here that really wanted it. And so over the last couple of years, we've made a commitment around trusting that what we put out there, the right people will be attracted to it. Our primary intention always is to show up well and be in service of any human being we come in contact with. And then we also hold a belief that there's something in this work for everybody, even though that person might not realize it for 5 years, but something will happen. And so
sure.
I think I'm giving you the challenge, but I'm also giving you the way that we handled it. Um, but I think that trying to meet everyone and be uh, a service for every human being because you believe so much in what you're doing, I think that that's a really dangerous, slippery slope. And I think the sooner, I know for me, the sooner we found that in my company, the quicker we got really grounded in who we wanted to work with.
That's solid. I know that's a common theme across a lot of the things that I'm hearing across podcasts or conventions or expos or those different things about trying to niche out and do that. And yeah, that's a great kind of a case study for that. And I appreciate you sharing that with
Oh,
us.
absolutely.
It's so relevant.
Oh, absolutely.
So, what is one key takeaway, I guess, from our conversation that for our audience to implement in regards to client or customer
Mm.
experience?
Well, I think it would be this. It's that you're contagious. It's that you are, as a business leader, as a human being, as a parent, as a member of society, you are contagious. Whatever you put out there is going to create more or less of the same. And so that's one. So you're contagious. You set the tone. You set the tone. Any room you walk into, especially if you're leading a team of people, especially if you're responsible for the growth of a company and responsible for the growth of human beings, you're contagious. You set the tone. So if you don't love the impact that you're having, the most liberating and powerful place to look at is how am I actually showing up that might be contributing to setting this tone. So that's one. And then the second piece that goes with your contagious is that it is your job. It is all of our jobs as leaders in our lives. It is our job to take exquisite care of ourselves. Exquisite. So we're talking self-care, our mental well-being, everything you can think of in terms of self-care, self-kindness. It is our job to take exquisite care of ourselves so that we can be more intentional, more energized, and more present and be positively contagious. So I would put those two together. You're contagious, and it's your job to make
Sure.
sure that you're as positively contagious as possible. And if you don't like what you're getting, then look at where you might be not honoring one of those two ideas.
Oh my goodness. It's so good, Anese. Thank you so much. It's great. I love it. And I love your passion and your fire and your just your desire to change or to improve, I guess, improve others and open up others to this opportunity. So are there any exciting projects or new things that you've got coming up that you'd like our listeners to know about?
Oh, always, 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 always. Well, first of all, Zach, thank you for that reflection. I do very much believe in this work. I think my thing has always been I want people to feel really happy in their lives. Like I think it's really important that we have this one precious life. I think it's really important that we feel happy and alive and vibrant. And at the same time, I think it's equally important that we use that happiness and that vibrancy to have a positive impact on the people around us. So, our businesses are a way that we manifest that. Parenting, relationships, leadership, all of it is a way that can be manifested. So I just want to underline it. It's not a sustainable model to have people feeling super happy, but yet they're not having any positive impact in the world. And it's also not sustainable to have people having tremendous impact in the world, except for they're burnout and exhausted. So I want both, and that's what I've decided to devote to with my lifetime. And in terms of projects that are coming up, yeah, we just released the latest book, which is called The Leader You Will Be, an Invitation. That just went out, and we actually did the book launch party at Zingerman. So the Roadhouse launched it. Ari kicked it off. It was really a beautiful experience. And that is just a little, very light leadership storybook. That's a poem that I wrote to address a lot of what we're talking about here and to put it all into one, just, Dr. Seussy type. Oh, so it's illustrated. It's beautiful. I'm really happy about the way it came out. Um, the other thing is, we're still Contagious Culture is the book that I wrote that was published in 2015. And the title is Contagious Culture: Show Up, Set the Tone, and Intentionally Create an Organization that Thrives. And that book,
Mm,
published by McGraw-Hill, November 2015, that book is a really, it's kind of like the little book that keeps on giving. It's really interesting how it's got so much of what you and I are talking about in here, and it's devoted to the organization, but it's also devoted to you in the organization. So for those of, for your listeners that are listening, they're wanting a little bit more about this and going, wait a second, hold on a minute, energy in an organization. I'm very excited that book is still like moving along and getting into more and more industry. So excited. So check that out. And then the next thing that I'm really excited about, besides just 10 other things, but the next big thing that I'm really excited about is working on the next book, which is called Contagious You: Unlock Your Incredible Power to Influence, Lead, and Create the Impact You Want. That book will come out actually in a year.
mm.
That we're working on that right now. It'll go into the whole editing process and all the magical publishing process, and that'll be published in November next year.
Super exciting stuff. So, how can our listeners get in contact with you, or how can they follow the business and kind of keep up with that journey?
Yeah, okay, great. So if your listeners go to iep.io, that is our little secret page that we give to for podcasts and for when I go out and I speak in the world. And that has a bunch of resources. It's got a virtual presence kit. It's got a toolkit on it for teams. It has the IEP sheet. There's like all sorts of stuff that we just gift out in the world because we want every single human being to be able to access this content. Um, you know, if they want it. And
Sure.
so we've got that. They can go to anesecavanaugh.com. That's our website that has a lot of the information and more details about all this. And then they can follow me out in the world. I'm usually pretty simple with my social media handles. It's usually at Anese Cavanaugh. And that's it. Oh, and at IEP Method. So we have both.
That's awesome. Okay, well, and I'll have all that linked up in the show notes for you guys listening. And so, Anese, I just want to thank you again so much for bringing amazing and incredible energy to the podcast. And it's clear that you're passionate, like I said, about providing this new opportunity and increasing the client experience as well as the company and culture experience. And so, I appreciate you taking the time to be on here. And I just, like I said, I appreciate you.
Oh, thank you, Zach. I appreciate you. Thank you for inviting me to come on and talk about it. I look at the client and the culture experience, and I think they're all the same. I think that if we take care of ourselves and we show up well, then that serves our team and our organization and our culture, which then serves our customers, which serves our results, which then we have world peace. So
there it is.
Right?
I solved it.
It's a really virtuous cycle. It's very lovely. So thank you for being in the conversation and for inviting me to talk with you.
Of course, anytime. Thank you for listening in on another episode of the CX Architect Podcast. As always, we would love to get your feedback on this episode and other episodes. If you liked it, if you pulled out any nuggets to implement, things like that. If you like this episode and are listening on your phone, take a quick screenshot and post it to Facebook or Instagram. Let me know what you thought, and then use hashtag CXArchitect and tag me in it so I can see your feedback. You can also head over to clientexperiencearchitect.com/podcast to find the show notes and a place to leave some feedback. Please let us know what you'd like to hear more of. And if you like the show and believe others might benefit from it, we'd love it if you share it up and leave a 5-star review on iTunes. Doing that will help more people discover the show. And with that, I appreciate you and thank you for listening. Have an awesome day.